Our campaign is all about freedom, prosperity, and peace.
We should, as soon as possible, restore our liberties so that we can become productive again.
Thanks for coming out to this event. Pahrump, you never let us down. You are our power center here in Nevada. I've been looking at the numbers out here in Nye County, and you guys have registered over 800 Republicans. Pretty sure that's close to as many votes as happened in 2008. So I have no worries about Nye County winning their county for Dr. Paul this time. That being said, it is very important that you get out and caucus. Make sure you take out your neighbors. Make sure the people that you've contacted in your precincts and in the community actually turn out. This isn't like a normal election. They have to show up. They have to be participating in the caucus meeting so Ron can win the state. We have the numbers to win. We just have to turn out. That's it. That simple. I have the opportunity now to introduce you to the doctor here. I always keep it short when I introduce him because I know the supporters know everything about him already. Dr. Congressman Ron Paul.
Thank you very much. I don't know what... Thank you. Before I get started, I want to introduce my wife and two of our granddaughters, Lisa and Linda, right here, Carol. Well, driving into town, I figured we'd have a nice reception, saw a few signs up. They're very pretty. Thank you for doing that. It was a nice sign. So a special event is coming tomorrow, and it looks like there's a lot of energy, and I always like to come to Nevada because there's a lot of people out here still believe in liberty. That's what I like. And that's what the message is all about. We've gotten ourselves into a real mess in this country because we've lost our conviction that liberty is the answer, and we've drifted along to the solution that so many have offered over the last 100 years, that the government is the answer. Government is the problem, is what we have to realize. So I do quite frequently criticize the current administration, but I also criticize many administrations going back a good many years. This mess didn't come up overnight. It didn't come up on just the last 3 years. But it's come up because we as a country have lost our total conviction and belief that we ought to have only people represent us in Washington who actually read the Constitution, believed in it, and voted that way. But we've been drifting, and for a long time it was we were capable of doing that because we had so much wealth. So if you're a wealthy individual, but you start working less but spending more, you can live off your wealth for a while. Then after you consume your wealth in your savings account, then you can go to your credit cards and you can live on borrowed money for a while. And if you happen to be government, when you run out of borrowing power, you can just print the money. So this is all coming to an end because something dramatic happened about 4 years ago. The market declared that this country is no longer solvent. We're limping along. We don't have the production. We don't have the wealth. And it's coming up short. There's a limit to how much borrowing, because if we didn't have the system of money we had, interest rates would rise and the Congress would have to quit spending. But they devised this system to perpetuate the growth of big government, and it was devised 100 years ago. And this is one major thing that we have to convert, reverse. First, there's a couple things in 1913 occurred. The first one, to introduce the age of big government, was this rejection of the founders' notion that we shouldn't have an income tax. I'd like to restore that principle. We shouldn't need an income tax. But also in that same fateful year, we had the introduction of the notion that government should institute central banking and allow the central bank to print money when the government ran out of money. And this has led to our economic problems. It has led to the size of our government. It has led to a method of paying for the things that we do overseas that we shouldn't be doing. It's led to this entitlement system, which is bankrupt. And that is the notion that there should be a central bank. There should not be a central bank. We don't need paper money. What we need is a gold standard in this country. There will be a day that the Fed may end itself. We should hurry it along. But in the meantime, the most important thing we can do, and we're getting more support than ever, and that is we need at least to find out exactly what the Fed's been doing, who they've been loaning the money to. We need a full, open audit of everything the Fed has done. Once we drifted away from the role of government being that of protection of liberty, and we introduced this notion that we had to be the policeman of the world and run the welfare state, what we have done is literally support the very wealthy at the expense of the middle class. When you destroy a currency, the value of the money hurts the middle class more than anybody else, because the middle class gets the money last, and what do? They get the higher prices. And in the meantime, when the bubble's being formed, it serves the interests of the very wealthy, the banking system and the corporations who get all the deals, the military-industrial complex. They all benefit. But the real tragedy occurred 4 years ago, because it came to an end, and the bubble was no longer sustainable, and the inevitable collapse of the bubble was occurring. So those individuals who were in charge says, you know, this is going to be very, very bad for the banking system and for the corporations. We have to bail them out. And they were in charge. They got the bailout, but they took all that bad debt that they had run up and they've dumped it on the American people. They've dumped it on us, and the American people then the middle class lost jobs, and they've lost their houses. So the system is biased against the middle class in favor of the special interest. And of course, a free society is biased toward the middle class. When we were a freer society, had a healthy currency, and government was limited, that is when the middle class was the largest and the richest in the history of the world. But that is not the case today. When the crisis hit, the Congress appropriated and authorized the use of about $1 trillion, and it all went to bailing out the special interest. At the same time, the Fed, because they do things in secret, literally generated and churned $15 trillion, and they say we don't have a right to know exactly where that money went. I say we have an obligation to know. We should only have people in Washington who will demand that we know. Even today, Bernanke has been in communication with Europe. Europe is in shambles. They're one step ahead of us. They're worse off. Everybody knows about the Greek debt. The Greek debt was sold to the banks in Europe. They thought they were going to make a killing. They're in trouble, but the banks in Europe are just branch banks so often. The banks are global. They're part of the American banks. So Bernanke is guaranteed, when push comes to shove, we, the people of this country, through the creation of more dollars, will bail out Europe as well. But there is a limit, and the limit is here because we've already been downgraded once. We're on the verge of our credit being downgraded once again. How can we do this? I mean, you just can't do this. So it is. It's a major decision point for us economically and politically, and this is the reason why the real problem is government is too big because of this arrangement. And if we want to shrink the size of government, guess what? You have to cut spending. That's what you have to do. Up until now, there's been nobody on either party propose real cuts. They talk about cutting around the edges of the proposed increases over the next 10 years, and they don't want to start for 2 years. I want to start the first year and cut real spending by $1 trillion. That's what we need to do. Now, my proposal of cutting $1 trillion, people get worried about it, who's going to get cut. Well, the easiest place, politically speaking, and actually for our own benefit, our national defense purposes, the smartest place to cut and the most chance we have to bring people together, liberals and conservatives and moderates and independents, Republicans and Democrats, should be this overseas welfare spending. We need to cut the overseas spending. But there's a few people in Washington that have a lot of influence in the banking system and for other reasons. They don't want to change the foreign policy. I want to change the foreign policy. I want to defend America. I don't want to police the world. That is the reason I want to end the wars and bring the troops home. I believe we will be safer and certainly a lot richer if we quit spending all this money overseas. In the last 10 years, the national debt went up from the spending overseas of over $4 trillion. So it is a big event. It is a big event, the fact that we're spending overseas. And if I thought it were necessary to defend this country, to be in 130 countries and have 900 bases, that is an obligation of the federal government to defend us. But I think we're less safe and we're going broke and we can't afford it. That's why we have to change the policy of being the world policeman. So the other cuts have to come elsewhere. We have to get rid of the many departments that we don't need. The easiest department that should be is getting rid of the Department of Education. They haven't done much of the work. How about the Department of Energy? Maybe the free market could solve our energy problem. What about the Department of Commerce? What about the Department of Interior? Do we need a Department of Interior? No. And of course, HUD was the participant and the instigator of the housing bubble. We don't need the HUD organization that props up Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and all the other mortgage companies that made the tens of billions of dollars. So there's places that we can cut, and we must cut. Otherwise, we're going to go off a cliff. We're going to continue to spend. Deficits are running now over $1 trillion a year, and it's totally unsustainable. And it's all taken care of by printing money. Eventually, the confidence will be lost, and prices will go up, and interest will go up, and then we won't be able to take care of anybody. My idea is to cut the $1 trillion and work our way out of it. And I don't even have the solution in the first year of saying, what are we going to do about Medicare and Medicaid and medical care for the children and Social Security? We don't have to attack those programs first. We can tide people over. But if we continue to do what we do, the checks will bounce. And there will be a lot of problems. And that is what I'm trying to avert. Under the conditions we have today, where we have perpetual war, it turns out that not only do we get committed to these wars overseas and we commit wealth and lives and so many injuries and sickness and all, it's such a tragedy. But there's also a war on the American people. There's a war against our rights in this country. They're always using it as an excuse. I mean, after 9/11, what did they do? Within 2 weeks, they passed the Patriot Act. We don't need the Patriot Act to defend this country. They call it the Patriot Act, but if they'd have called it what it really is, was repeal the Fourth Amendment Act, maybe it wouldn't have been passed. But it is the Patriot Act that gives the authority to the government to spy on us. Then let's see. Original intent of the Constitution, especially with the Fourth Amendment, was to protect your privacy and make sure the government was open. Today, the government is secret and you have no privacy left. And that needs change. And of course, you know, symbolically at least, and because of the way we have to travel and just witnessing some of the pictures you see at the airports, I don't believe for 1 minute the TSA makes us safer. We could live very well without the TSA robbing us at airports. But the attack on our personal liberty and our privacy has been systematic. A year ago, the president announced that now he had the authority that if it was his decision to assassinate an American citizen without charges, without arrest, and without any conviction at all, he had the right to do this. That is wrong, and we should not allow that to stand. And he had to prove his point. He's done it on 3 occasions. He picked one that had a bad reputation, talked and said bad things, but was never proven that he ever engaged in violence. So they said, well, we had to silence him. He was in Yemen. We sent a missile over there and killed him. And he thought, well, one of his family members was also participating in this too. So they said, we have to assassinate his family member. So they did. Within a week, they assassinated his son. It turned out that his son was 16. He was out in the backyard barbecuing with his cousin, and his cousin gets killed too. So there's a limit. There has to be a limit. That's what a republic is all about, and that's what the rule of law is all about. You protect the rights of even the bad people in order to make sure that our rights are protected if we're ever charged with anything. And then to make things worse, the Congress just passed recently and the President signed on New Year's Day. He said, Happy New Year's. I've just signed the National, NAACA, and which means that the federal government, our Congress, gave the President the explicit authority and codified the fact that he can use the military to arrest any one of us and no charges made. No charges, no trial, and no attorney, put in secret prison, held indefinitely. That's not the America we should want to live in ever. And there's also a systematic attack that's been going on for about 40 years, and we've spent about $3 trillion to try to teach people better habits. And there are some habits that people ought to learn, better habits, and where they abuse what they take into their bodies. But believe me, governments aren't capable of teaching people better habits. And this is the issue of the drug war. We learned our lesson, almost 100 years ago, that trying to teach people a lesson about over drinking. Prohibition of alcohol was a total failure, committed crime and more deaths, and it was terrible. The American people said this is stupid. Alcoholism is a problem, but that's more of a medical problem. Drug addiction is a medical problem. It's not. It shouldn't be treated as a crime, and the drug war has totally failed. It has undermined our liberties. It has given our governments at the national and even local level, the authority to bust in houses that aren't even participating. They make mistakes. People get killed. So I believe that the drug war ought to be repealed as well. So we have this systematic attack on the undermining and the destruction of the free market, the monetary system, because we don't follow the rules. We have this systematic attack on our personal liberties. At the same time, we have a foreign policy that is leading us to our bankruptcy and not making us any safer. So what is the solution? We got into this mess basically because we haven't followed the Constitution. We can get back on our feet again by having people that go to Washington and will obey the Constitution in every respect. But we also have to have more confidence in ourselves, because we drifted away 100 years ago thinking, well, you know, the free market isn't strong enough to take care of everybody. People might do something with their liberties that we don't find appealing, so therefore we have to tell people how to run their private lives. And besides, the world isn't well behaved, and they don't have the same type of governments, and they don't have the same type of social structures as we think they should. And so we embark on this idea that the government can take care of all these things. Now, we got away with this for a long time because we had a maximum amount of freedom and maximum amount of prosperity. But see, that has all changed now. And now we're poor, and we're barely making it. We're living on borrowed money. The currency is very vulnerable. It can change rapidly any day now. It might last for a year or two or three or four. We don't know that. But when confidence is lost, and then you end up with not only economic chaos, you can end up with political chaos. And Europe is just giving us hints. The demonstrations in the streets, the demonstrations around the world in the Middle East have been mostly the prices of food have gone up and the prices of gasoline go up. And that is what is translated. When they lose confidence in the money, prices go up already. I mean, just think of how many people who are trying to get through college. Well, the prices are too high. People are complaining. Medical care is okay in this country, but the costs are too high. And if you talk about all the distortions, that comes as a monetary policy. It isn't that prices are going up, it's that the value of our dollar is going down. That is why we have to do something about the monetary system. But the experiment we had was the best in the world. We had the richest middle class and the biggest middle class. And now that that is changing, we have to say, well, we have to get our confidence back again. We have to believe that it will work. So often people think that, well, that sounds like a good idea. Maybe we can just go a little bit in that direction. But I don't think that is the case. If you allow the government to go a little bit in the other direction, for instance, when they started the income tax, well, we'll just have a small tax on a few people, and look at the monstrosity that it's turned into. Oh, we'll give a Federal Reserve System, and they're going to bail out the banks and the economy in case we get into trouble, until they became the lender of last resort for the whole world. So a little bit of concession to government power usually ends up in a mess that we have today. So we have to argue the case to show that if we have any humanitarian instincts at all, if we care about people, if we care about poor people, we care about the middle class, what we have to do is show, because it's true, we have to show and convince people that freedom provides the prosperity, not more government. And there's also one other aspect that we have to understand, that freedom is, unfortunately, has been divided into two pieces. Some people defend personal liberties. You can have your personal civil liberties on how you want to run your life and your lifestyle. But they don't defend economic liberty. Then you have a few others that will defend economic liberty and say the government shouldn't tell us how to spend our money, but yes, we better tell people what they can put in their bodies and whether or not they can drink raw milk or not. That's the stupidity of it. But we have to once again understand liberty as the founders did, that liberty is one thing. Liberty is individual. It comes to us as a natural right from our God, or in a natural way. And that it is that liberty that protects your personal liberty, your religious liberty, your social liberty, and it protects your economic liberty as well. It's all in one. If we understand this and have confidence once again in what we had in America, we don't have to go back to where we were. We can pick up the pieces where we were and actually expand that concept, and we can improve on the gold standard. We can improve on the integrity of protecting each and every individual. So that is what is available to us. And the good news is that the country is alive and well. They're listening. They will listen to Nevada if we have success here. And there will be this continuation of this movement. The college campus have come alive, and those who have been frustrated and sitting out of these elections, they're coming back into the fold, because this whole movement is alive and well like it has never been for 100 years. So let's join in this, make sure that we have a victory on Saturday, tomorrow, and send a strong message to the country. Thank you very much.
Congressman Paul is going to shake hands. If you just in an orderly fashion line up, we're going to go down this wall over here. As he's shaking hands and doing some signatures for you, I just want to talk about how important the caucus is tomorrow. Becoming a delegate is one of the most important things you can do. Going through the county convention, through the state convention, and supporting other Ron Paul delegates through the state convention to the national convention. If you have questions, please come talk to me. I'll be happy to help you with the process and explain anything. Thank you.
Hello, Pahrump, and welcome to our News 46 exclusive live coverage of Congressman Dr. Ron Paul here in Pahrump, Nevada at the Calvetta Skate Zone. Now, we were expecting him at 1?
We were indeed. There was apparently a scheduling conflict, so Ron Paul showed up a little early, showed up at noon, and took to the stage almost instantaneously. So we've got as much of that speech as we possibly could. And hopefully, just a few moments, he should be here, and we should have an interview for you.
That's right. Rick is going to have that interview with Dr. Ron Paul. What a privilege, and I'm so grateful that he came here to Pahrump, and he knows that you Pahrump citizens are very, very important to him and to America. I remember the last race, we had a few candidates actually come to Pahrump, and it was really exciting.
Yeah.
So far today, what do you think about the turnout, especially because of the time?
Well, it's been really good. You know, surprisingly, we had a lot of people show up early, so most of the seats were pretty full. Although, as I understand it, I guess Ron's going to hang out for a while because he understands the scheduling conflict. He's going to try and accommodate those people who do want to get out here by 1 o'clock to see him. So, very kind gesture on his part to try and do that. But yeah, the seats are full. The audience is roaring. They're excited. It was a rousing speech, as I'm sure you saw. And yeah, it was great.
Oh, he definitely has the people here in Pahrump excited. And you know, when you drive around town, we see a lot of Ron Paul signs. Why do you think that is?
Well, you sure do. It's because he's got such a strong support base here. A small group of roughly 30 people are responsible for all that signage. They went ahead and set that up everywhere all over town. But the support extends beyond that. I mean, his support group is enormous here. If you could tell just from the audience itself, we got a lot of people here.
You know, they call him the champion of the Constitution. Yeah. Why is that?
I think that's because what Ron's been always talking about is taking us back to a constitutional government, you know, and really just breaking away from all these ridiculous, overzealous acts and bills and just stick with the core Bill of Rights. I mean, it was the Founding Fathers did it that way, and that's why we did it.
Very good. Well, I happen to like a lot of the things that he has to say, and hopefully he'll be here in just a minute to talk to everybody here in Pahrump live on television. That
Absolutely.
would be great. So now, is there anything particular that you are wondering about that you want to ask him?
Absolutely. Well, I'm really interested in the internet bills, you know, because the internet's always been free. It was developed by college people, it was developed by, you know, to be a form of communication, and now the government's trying to stifle it. So I really want to get Ron's view on that and how he feels. You know, he was one of the only government officials who actually blacked out his own site during the SOPA protests. So I'd be very interested to hear his take on it.
So he actually did that, huh?
Yeah, he did indeed.
Wow, that's a stance.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we just heard that Donald Trump has endorsed Mitt Romney.
Indeed, yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that's a hard hit to Ron, but I'm not that surprised, really. I mean, Ron is seen as a rebel, even in other media, not just, you know, as obviously not us, but other media articles and whatnot. He's described as a radical, a rebel, somebody that, you know, is too extreme for the American people. But the truth is, you know, his ideals are very similar to those of...
Take us back to where we were.
Absolutely, those of Jefferson or anyone before him.
Well, a lot of people are saying it's way too early for Trump to have endorsed somebody, and that actually might backfire for Mitt Romney. But Ron Paul's not out of this.
No, not at all. You know, the Republican, he's a Republican congressman of Texas, and, you know, he's got a very strong following. Obviously, they say his strongest following is here in Nevada, but, you know, he's had good showings. He turned out in the top two of the first two caucuses of this primary, so it's, you know, it's anybody's game right now. And you need to make sure you go out to the caucus and you vote. It is so important. People don't understand that. The caucuses are the most important part of this. If you don't get into the caucuses, your candidate doesn't get on the ballot.
Well, you know, I was pretty new to politics when I started at the station, I don't know, 15 years ago or so. And I've learned a lot through the years. And I'll be going to the caucus tomorrow, most definitely, and I'm rooting for Ron.
Yeah, me too. I absolutely am. I got to say, I agree. I know, we're supposed to be nonpartisan, but I got to give it to him. I really do. Yeah.
But I really, really appreciate it. I mean, you know what? I appreciate the fact that he's here in Pahrump today.
Right.
I haven't seen anybody else yet.
Yeah. He took the time to come out here to talk to us and tell us what's going on. And you can't ask for more than that. That was great. It's a really nice show.
Nye County's important. Nye County is so important to the vote. And Pahrump, of course, we're the biggest town in Nye County. So.
Oh, it is. And Nye County is, the second or third largest county in the country. I mean, the whole of Nye County is larger than Jersey. So there you go.
And word spreads. Word of mouth is really the key, even more than all these ads and things that are going on. And I would love to know what Ron Paul thinks about some of the things that are going on in the press right now. You know, they take pieces of what each candidate says and twist it.
Yes, yeah, it's unfortunate. It really is. And, and their view of Nye County and Pahrump is a bit skewed as well. I mean, just this morning there was an article in the New York Times about Ron Paul visiting Pahrump. And, it's the image of Pahrump is demeaned so heavily in these articles. It's frustrating because they don't really understand the power of the people here, the power of the vote that Pahrump does have. We are a powerful community, and we should not be underestimated. And it's a shame, really.
I agree with you 100%. 100%. So some of the things that we're wanting to know from Ron is, if for some reason he weren't in this race, who would he support?
Right.
Because a lot of his supporters are saying, if Ron's not there, I'm not going to vote at all. So I wonder how he feels about that.
Well, we're hopefully going to ask him that, assuming that we get the interview. Well, we are expecting him, though. So we have been told he will be coming to us. Right now, he's doing a meet and greet with a lot of the Pahrump people. He's shaking hands. He's saying hello. He's getting out there. So we imagine it can't be too much longer before he makes his way over here. But you never know. There's a lot of people really excited to meet Ron.
Yeah, and, I can't believe the turnout. Look at the line here of the people who want to talk to them. I don't know if we're getting that on camera or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but it's seriously,
there's a long
front
line.
to the back of the building, a line of people, at least 3 or 4 people wide. I mean, absolutely.
And we just took a look at the crowd, and
I'm trying to pull up here on the tablet some of the things about Ron Paul that some of you may or may not know. He is an OBGYN.
Oh, yes.
Right? Yeah.
Wasn't he a flight medic in the military?
I think he was. Yeah, he's born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. For those who don't know, he attended Gettysburg College and Duke University of Medicine, and he served as a flight surgeon in the U.S. Air Force during the 1960s. So, he's not a man who's going to obviously ignore his military. He's very proud of his military service.
So he's an opinion that we can respect when we talk about the Obamacare and this universal health plan.
Right.
And how he feels it will or will not benefit the United States of America.
It's true enough. And, he's got an opinion about it. Obviously, his plan is to repeal Obamacare. At least that's what my understanding is. So we're going to get his ideas on that and see what he thinks about that, because it is an issue. And, it's hitting everybody. Obamacare is not exactly the most popular act we've come up with.
No, I don't think a lot of people realize how it affects them. For instance, we know of someone at the station, and her husband is disabled, and he needs a wheelchair ever so often because they wear out, because he's completely dependent on it.
Absolutely.
And now with the Obamacare, you're allowed to have one in your lifetime. So if that breaks down, too bad, too sad. No more wheelchair for you.
So let that be a lesson.
Disappointing.
Yeah, if you're
and I think the people are saying, no, it's going to help us, it's going to help us. But in this particular instance, is definitely not helping.
So apparently if you're disabled, you should also be a mechanic because you're going to have to fix your own chair. But, you know, he's, Dr. Paul, he's a big part of the medical industry as an OBGYN. He's delivered over 4,000 babies, and, you know, he's got several kids of his own. He's, you know, be curious to see how he can tackle that, should he get elected. It really is.
Well, you know, running for the new seat in Congress is Danny Tarkanian.
Absolutely.
And he is here in Pahrump today. Matter of fact, he was at the station earlier.
Yep.
And it's a new seat for Congress. So we're hoping to maybe get a couple words with him here also and talk to him about his plans. But he is here to support Ron Paul today.
Absolutely. He came all the way to Pahrump just to make sure that he was here to support Ron Paul. So hopefully we will actually get a few words with Dan. I know he's here. I saw him at the station earlier before I came down here, and I know he said he was going to be here. So
it says a lot. He comes from a family that's very involved in Nevada. His father with coaching at a university, his mother with city council, his wife with the GOP. So they're pretty involved in Nevada, and he has been through a few races. And that's not a negative thing. That means experience.
Absolutely.
And with such a well-known name, I think it's very likely.
Yeah, certainly
just my opinion, very likely that name recognition might help him push through for this seat.
Certainly a more worthwhile recognition or endorsement than that of Trump, I would imagine.
Well, in Nevada, I think it might mean a lot more. But, you know, Nevada's a showy state. So to have such a showman like Donald Trump, you know, in the media today, it's a Nevada type of thing. So maybe that's why they chose Nevada to do it.
All that Vegas flair.
All
what are you
that
going to do?
Vegas flair. That's right. But yeah, so hopefully we get to speak to Danny Tarkanian and find out how he feels about what's happening. We know he's here to support Ron Paul, so that says a lot right there.
Yes, indeed.
And what his visions are for the Congress, because Congress is not doing well. The American public, they have an approval rating of like 11%. That is terrible.
It is indeed,
It's really low. If a president's even have 40%, they're saying, oh no, America's left the president. So I don't know what's happening there. Maybe he'll be able to get in there and start turning things around.
Maybe. I definitely think the American people are ready for a new candidate. I think that they're ready to let Obama, you know, finish his run and move on to someone. But, you know, the question is whether or not it's going to be Ron. And it all depends, again, on those caucuses and whether or not he even makes the ballot as the candidate. So, you know, again, I can't stress this enough, people. You have to make sure you're going out there and voting. Please, don't, if you know, he doesn't get the candidacy, don't not vote. Please vote. Very important.
Definitely to vote. Definitely need to vote. And don't say, I don't think Ron Paul is electable, because they're saying, listen, for every person who says that, if they would just vote for him, he's electable.
Absolutely.
It makes a really good point. So maybe he's the, I mean, he's out there with them, but maybe he's considered the dark horse in this race.
Could be. Certainly an underdog, at least based on the popularity polls, especially most recently. The Florida primaries didn't fare so well. He tacked in at about 7%, not a very strong showing for him. He came in 4th place. But the flip side of that is that he also didn't campaign a lot in Florida, and not really sure why. Maybe if we have enough time, we will get a chance to ask him about that.
He's been pretty organized in Nevada and has been for a while. He's had a lot of supporters here. So it's quite possible that the results from Saturday are going to be quite different from what we saw in Florida.
I'm certainly
Why do you
hoping
think
so.
Florida was so low? You are from Florida.
I am, yes.
And you have a lot of family there.
I do.
So what's your opinion?
And Florida has been generally known as a Republican state, but it's, you know, it's not the same kind of Republican. You know, it's different.
I get him over here?
Absolutely.
Sure,
Okay, I'm going to get him over here like now.
All right.
I'm going
Sounds
to go
good.
down there and do a media veil, and then I'm going to get him to go back up since the local support.
And we're live right now.
All right, so good news, folks. Good news. Ron Paul is coming. He's coming over pretty much right now, so we're going
And
to...
that was the wonderful woman who's been in charge of this
that's
event.
Debbie. Debbie's been great.
And she's going to be
bring
very
Paul.
gracious to come bring him right now. So I'm sorry we were interrupted, but we will get back to that.
No, absolutely.
And I am going to let you take center stage so that we can get Dr. Paul over here.
All right, sounds great. Thank you very much, Rhonda. Thank you, sir. Audio level. All right, so we're here still waiting on Ron is still gladly and happily shaking hands. Check, check. We're live. We are okay. Ron is still here. He's still happily shaking hands and saying hello to all the people of Pahrump who have come all the way out here just to see him, including not just people from Pahrump, but people from all over Nevada who really wanted to have a chance to meet Ron and talk to him. So it's going to be just a few more moments before we get him over here, but he will be here soon. And again, quite the turnout today. I can't tell you the number, rough estimate, several hundred people easily has to be here to see Ron. Lots of excitement in the air, lots of cheering, lots of signage. Everybody really happy to have Dr. Ron Paul here. His security team is escorting him over here. He's going to be here shortly, just a moment longer. Again, the Republican from Texas, Ron Paul, Dr. Ron Paul, here in Pahrump, here with an exclusive interview with KPVM, live just for you folks here at home. Now, Dr. Ron Paul, a long history of being in Congress. He's a well-known gynecologist. Once again, for those who don't know, he's delivered over 4,000 babies. He was in the military. He served as a medical professional, and hopefully we'll have a chance to speak with him. Hi, Rhonda. Welcome back.
Well, while we're waiting,
yes.
You know, I felt bad leaving up here all
I
by
appreciate
lonesome.
that. Let's start spouting off facts because, you know, not a lot of people know enough about Ron. I figured I might share some.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to hear that, but I want to hear more about your the Florida opinion until he gets here.
You know, okay, so there's different types of Republicans everywhere. You know? We're not one general community of people. We've got people, the people in Florida are a different type. They have a different mindset. You know, the people in Nevada, we're all about open carry. We're all about, you know, old school government. The people in Florida, you know, it's a different mentality. It really is. I mean, we, again, predominantly a Republican state, and we like, I don't say we, myself not included, but as a general rule, it seems that, you know, we like the more conventional candidates, the ones who are a little more frequent these days, you know, and it's a shame, really, because, you know, a lot of my friends back home have told me this, they realize that Ron is the man with the plan, you know, that he can reduce the federal government, that he can help, you know, stave a lot of these problems off, but that, you know, they feel he's not an electable candidate, and that's a shame, because I happen to disagree, but...
And here he comes.
All right, here he comes, so Dr. Ron Paul.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Thank you, sir.
Here's your interview.
And put this back, I'm sorry.
There you go, sir.
Right here?
Right
Absolutely.
there,
Okay. When I get to sit down. What station is this?
KPVM, Channel 46.
Okay.
How you doing, Doctor?
Very good.
Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Here's a microphone for you, sir, if you like.
Can you hold that?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. You want me to be the announcer?
Sure, you can be the announcer for us.
Does that have to stick up there?
Excuse me.
That's all right.
You're
You can
on
leave
my
that just
cord,
there.
sorry.
You're fine.
Yeah, all right.
All right. It's nice to see you. Okay, so, Dr. Ron, one of the things, popular issues that's over the last couple months was the SOPA and the PIPA bill, and how they were stopped, basically, by the American people getting up and saying, hey, leave my internet alone. What do you have to say about that? I noticed you were one of the only candidates to black out your own website.
Right. And, you know, and also I was the only Republican that signed letters to try to stop that. But I use that as an example of why we shouldn't be too despondent about changing our government. Because when the people wake up and they speak out, they can get the attention of Congress. Too often the people are lackadaisical or don't hear about it. Well, I thought this was really a significant event. It's because you didn't hear this on national news every night and warn us about it. So people had to learn about it on their own and probably through the internet and local shows and different things. But they finally heard, you know, about the problem, and they sent the message out. And, you know, it was taken off the Senate, and the Senate leader had to do that, as well as in the House. They didn't bring it up to a vote. But we still have to be concerned about a treaty that might do the same thing. So people should be aware of the fact that they might try to accomplish it by a treaty. So hopefully our senators will not ratify that treaty.
Absolutely, yeah, excellent. And
real quick, they're gonna put a different mic on this one.
all right, we're going to change out Dr. Ron's mic. Just give us one moment, folks.
Just real quick.
We're showing the audience. So sorry. Excuse me. I'm Rhonda, by the way. Nice to have you here.
All right.
Already now.
So now, you've been said that a lot of people know, say that you're the man with the plan to reduce the size of the federal government, and that's something we can all get behind. But a lot of these same people feel you're a little lax about your foreign policy. Can you take a minute and tell American people why they shouldn't expect another 9/11 under your rule?
See, they can't really understand economics if they don't understand foreign policy, because it's a big drain. But the big issue is that I don't believe the explanation that we've been given for 10, 12 years now why they attacked us. Because they said, well, they attacked us because of only religious beliefs, and that certain number of Muslims despise us because we're free and rich. Mm-hmm. If you believe that, then you can believe almost anything. So I don't believe that. The people who have done the scientific studies, whether it's been the 9/11 Commission, the DOD Department, our CIA, and even some who promoted the war, like Paul Wolfowitz, they came to the conclusion that the anger was built up because we occupied Muslim nations and we were killing people like in Iraq, and we've gone a long way away from our own home to get ourselves involved. So it's occupation is the key issue. So I would say that with a non-interventionist constitutional foreign policy, not only would we save a lot of money, we'd save ourselves creating more enemies, and we could spend more money on our national defense. We might defend, say, our borders to the south of us, and rather than worrying about the borders between Afghanistan and Pakistan. So it's a different approach, but it's our tradition. It was part of the Republican Party at one time. It was what the founders advised. So it's something that's very, very important to me, and I think we win over. The person that was in charge of in the CIA for over 20 years to watch bin Laden, he's a strong supporter of mine, because he's one of the ones that I've looked to for an explanation. So it is something that people really must look into, because they will come down on our side of the argument about foreign policy, and they'll feel safer if they have a non-interventionist foreign policy.
Understandable. And now you've predicted the fall of the American dollar. We read about that. Are there steps that the American people can take to avoid such a thing?
The only thing they can do is reject the notion that the government is their salvation. They have to reject the idea that entitlements are rights. Sounds like it should be a right if you're entitled to something.
Right.
So your individuals have an entitlement or a right to their life and their liberty. And I think they should have a right to keep what they earn, but they don't have a right to their neighbor's property. So this idea that government can provide free housing or free education or free medical care or free food is impossible, because they have to use force and violence through the tax code to take from one group and redistribute it. And it sounds like, oh, well, just give up a little freedom and they're going to create all this prosperity. But the tragedy is it ends up like the housing bubble. They try to give everybody a free house, and the people they were trying to help ended up with no house at all or a job.
Terrible.
So that's why it's a total failure.
It's a shame. And now just one more question. It's been said that you want to close the doors of the IRS. Do you feel like this is something you can actually accomplish if elected? I mean, won't you meet with ridiculous amounts of resistance in Washington?
Oh, there would be, and one individual can't do it.
Yeah.
But I think, according to the rallies that we have and the sentiment and the economic facts of life, is we can't continue to do what we do. So I think we have to reassess our entitlement system and our foreign policy, and we have to reassess the monetary policy, because that's an incentive. The IRS is a culprit, but the IRS doesn't even collect enough money, so they just keep printing money. So the government keeps growing. So the people have to decide what they think the role of government ought to be. If they think the role of government absolutely has to take care of people from cradle to grave, and we have this absolute moral imperative that we police the world and get involved in every war, no, you can't get rid of we're going to just spend ourselves until we have runaway inflation, destroy the money, and we're on a foolhardy course. But if the people decide, well, this isn't working, and which is a lot of people who are discovering it. It isn't working. We should defend sound money and private property and states' rights and a decent foreign policy. Yes, you could. But one person, the president, doesn't have the authority. And if he just said that we're going to quit closing tax, we just say, oh, everybody quit paying taxes, it would be rather chaotic. I think the transition has to be to convince the people that depending on big government for all their protection doesn't work.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ron Paul, for your time. We really appreciate having you out here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
There you have it, folks. Words from Dr. Ron Paul himself.
Okay.
And in just a moment, we're going to have, you can go ahead, you're all set, thank you. Just a moment, we'll have Rhonda back here, and we'll continue talking about Ron's visit. The doctor has a lot of appointments he has to get to, so very short. Sorry about that, folks. Lots more questions to ask him, unfortunately, just the lack of time. So, again, Dr. Ron Paul, huge turnout on the crowd, as we've shown you several times. It's been great. So thank you again for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We're going to take a moment here and take a look at the crowd.
Nobody has a Sharpie?
Yeah, Jeanette, she didn't get around very good.
Dr. Ron answering lots of questions. A man who surely is not unfamiliar with having a camera pointed at him.
They look so friendly.
What he's going to do is he's going to take a couple more questions and he's going to go back on stage for 5 minutes. Okay. And then we've got to leave.
And we'd like to thank the Dr. Ron Paul campaign for enabling us to bring you this live feed at home from the Pahrump Nugget. I mean, not from the Nugget, sorry, from the skate zone, Pahrump Skate Zone down here in Calvada. So it's been a real pleasure to meet the doctor. And, you know, just again, you folks at home who didn't get a chance to get out here, you really want to make sure you make it out to the Nevada caucus on Saturday, tomorrow. I believe the caucus starts at 9 a.m. You're going to want to make sure you're there. Dr. Ron Paul is counting on you all. He's counting on all your votes to make sure that he does get the nomination. And without your support, it can't happen. Dr. Paul, he returned to Congress in 1997 to represent the 14th Congressional District of Texas. He served on the House Financial Services Committee and Foreign Affairs Committee. On the Financial Services Committee, Representative Paul serves as the chairman of the Subcommittee on Domestic Monetary Policy and Technology. He continues to advocate a dramatic reduction in the size of federal government and a return to constitutional principles. And that's right off of his website, ronpaul2012.com. I highly recommend you guys go check it out and read it. Dr. Ron Paul is consistently talked about as the man to reduce the size of your federal government. And people, you gotta remember, reduction in federal government means a reduction in taxes, means a reduction in government control programs. I can't stress enough, you really want to check out his website, ronpaul2012.com. He's got a full list of issues, actually one of the most cohesive and coherent lists of issues and resolutions that I've seen on any candidate's website. He's got a strong stance on immigration, a strong stance on abortion, a strong stance on health care. And he intends to repeal Obamacare and move on to hopefully bigger and better things. Again, Dr. Ron attempting to make his way out, but the crowd is overwhelmingly excited to see him. We are, again, really happy to have him out here in Pahrump, and Pahrump, a strong supporter of Ron Paul. Another interesting note is that Dr. Paul is the author of several books. He's published, including The Revolution and Manifesto, another book, And the Fed, a book called Liberty Defined, Challenge to Liberty, The Case for Gold, and A Republic If You Can Keep It. He has been a distinguished counselor to the Ludwig von Mises Institute and is widely quoted by scholars and writers in the fields of monetary policy, banking, and political economy. He has received many awards and honors during his career in Congress from organizations such as National Taxpayers Union, Citizens Against Government Waste, the Council for a Competitive Economy, and countless others. Again, the website is ronpaul2012.com, and it's got all the information you could want. You can donate there should you feel again, make sure you head out tomorrow morning, the Nevada caucuses, get your votes in to support Dr. Ron Paul, should you feel that he is your candidate. You should go, even if you feel he's not your candidate. Vote for somebody. Just get out and vote. You know, the American people have ignored that for too long, and voting is one of the most powerful ways to make decisions in your country and help form it in the way you want. So, folks, again, live coverage from the Ron Paul 2012 event here at the Pahrump Skate Zone on Calvada. We're not sure how much longer Dr. Paul will be here. So if you want a chance to see him, you want a chance to shake his hand, make sure you get out here right away. You're not live anymore. I'm still talking though, aren't I? Okay. Oh, thank goodness. Yeah. Hey, we are live. We're still live. We are good. Okay. Showing you as much footage as we can of the event. Dr. Ron has basically been brought to a standstill here in the middle of the skate zone. Lots of folks trying to get in to meet him and see him. Doing our best to cover the event for you. Stick with us, folks. I've got going to attempt to pull up a little more information for you about Dr. Ron. Just bear with me, folks. Literally a horde of people around Dr. Paul right now. Enormous amount of folks. I'm going to step back here and try and get a better look. All right. Folks, we've got people from the front of the building to the back of the building, all here, all waiting to see Dr. Ron Paul. Really, folks, just, if you want a chance to see him, you're going to want to head down here right now. I mean, absolutely right now.
Good luck, sir.
Okay.
I'm a Democrat, and I'm voting for you.
My system proceeds to cooperate with me. I'll have a little more information for you about Dr. Ron. A little blurb about Dr. Ron. While serving in Congress during the late 1970s and early 1980s, Dr. Paul's limited government ideals were not popular in Washington. He served on the House Banking Committee, where he was a strong advocate for sound monetary policy and an outspoken critic of the Federal Reserve's inflationary measures. He also was a key member of the Gold Commission, advocating a return to a gold standard for our currency.
There you go.
He was an unwavering advocate of pro-life and pro-family values, and Dr. Paul consistently voted to lower or abolish federal taxes, spending, and regulation, and used his House seat to actively promote the return of government to its proper constitutional levels in 1984.
Come on down.
To just come back up for a few minutes, and then he's going to have to go. So I'm going to do my introduction now, and if you can make it up by the time is right, that'll be good. I'm going to start my introduction with a quote that I don't think any American can hear too much. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. This is perhaps the most important paragraph in human history, proclaimed for the first time that mankind has rights untouchable by government, and define the proper role of government as to protect those freedoms. Our nation was created on these principles. During our lifetime, these principles have been pretty much forgotten in Washington. And it's up to we, the people, to remind them. Never before in my voting life has there been an opportunity to support someone who not only believed in these principles, but lived them with honor and integrity. But now there is, and we can't let this opportunity pass us by. So, ladies and gentlemen, the champion of the Constitution, my hero, and the bravest man I know, Dr. Ron Paul.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. I was told that if I give an abbreviated speech like 5 minutes and summarize everything I've said in the last 30 years, then everybody would be happy. But it's not too difficult to summarize the important elements of what I have been talking about for so long. And it really boils down to one thing, and that is personal liberty, individual liberty. And if you think about individual liberty, it is individual. Liberty doesn't come to us by group. People don't have hyphenated liberty, and we don't have hyphenated freedoms. And that's what the founders understood, and that's what the revolution was all about, and that's what the Constitution is all about, is the protecting of liberty. If you read the Constitution, it was to restrain the government, and it was to enhance the personal liberty. So if we had done that a long time ago, we wouldn't have the problems that we have today. So because we have not followed the Constitution on the monetary issue, we've ended up with the Federal Reserve, and they print money at will. They destroy the value of the currency. They give us bubbles, and they give us the recessions and depression. So quite frankly, the conclusion there should be that we don't need a Federal Reserve. The Constitution is very clear about foreign policy. The federal government, and especially the president, has a lot to do with defending the country. And that should be one of the primary orders and responsibilities. But it does not give the president nor the Congress or anybody else the authority to go to war without declaration. We should only go to war with a declaration of war. And there's no authority in the Constitution for presidents to disobey the rule of law and disobey the Constitution and say, oh, I don't have to talk to the Congress, I'm going to talk to NATO and the United Nations. We should never allow a president to go to war under a UN resolution. Also, the 10 amendments to the Constitution are obviously very important. The First Amendment, most people know what that's supposed to do, and the Fourth Amendment, and also the Fifth Amendment. But right now, they're under systematic attacks by our government and our courts because Americans our liberties aren't protected. So when you hear laws being passed like in the atmosphere of post 9/11 and saying, well, we're going to make the American people safer and by taking away their freedoms, and they pass the Patriot Act. We don't need the Patriot Act to make us safe and secure. So what we need is, if we understand what liberty is all about, we have free markets, we have sound money, we have property rights, and we have contract rights. It's wrong when our opponents say, oh, they don't want any regulations, they just want the chaos of the free market, which isn't true. But the free market has a lot of rules. If you go bankrupt, you have to go bankrupt and not get bailed out. And you also can't counterfeit money like the Federal Reserve does. But instead, we have a government, instead of protecting the market, they destroy the market. We really don't have property rights anymore. Think about people who have land in Nevada. Can they do much without asking the government? The federal government owns most of the land. My position is the land ought to be owned by the states and the people of Nevada, not the federal government. So the free market economy and the protection of civil liberties, the Fourth Amendment meant to protect your privacy. We have a government now out of control. What does it do? It protects the secrecy of government and invades your privacy. We need that turned around once again and protect your privacy and expose the government. But if we truly want peace and prosperity, we have to live within our means. We shouldn't be running up debt. We shouldn't have a Federal Reserve System. We would not need an income tax. We would have to change our foreign policy. We can't be the policemen of the world. We have to be more concerned about our own borders than pretending that we know how to find or even delineate and solve the problems of border wars all around the world. We don't even know where the border is between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And yet, in the last 5 years, there were over 47,000 people killed on our southern border. We have chaos on our borders, and nobody even wants to talk about it. So we need to decide, do we have a constitution? Do we have a national sovereignty issue for the protection and the care of the American citizens? Or are we going to dilute ourselves and bankrupt ourselves by pretending that we have the authority and the wealth to police the world? This can all be reversed by one thing: confidence in the cause of liberty and private property, and conviction by those that we send to Washington that they ought to know and understand and believe in the Constitution and follow the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Happening with Iraq and Israel, and about drawing back forces.
Okay.
Again, welcome to this exclusive live coverage of Dr. Ron Paul in Pahrump, Nevada, and I'm here with
Carl Bunce, the Nevada chairman for the 2012 campaign.
It's very, very good to have you here in Pahrump, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Rhonda.
You know, we've answered a lot of questions for people today. Dr. Paul sat with us, and we're very happy about that.
Okay.
But one thing we didn't ask about is with the current upheaval of Iran and Israel, he's mentioned wanting to pull back our presence around the globe.
Okay.
How does he feel about that with what's going on right now?
As far as pulling back right now, once he's president, basically wants a non-interventionist foreign policy. And basically what that entails is, if there are issues, if there are threats to American sovereignty or a threat to our people in general, that our Congress must declare war. Currently, we're involved in so many skirmishes and battles around the world that our Congress has never declared war. So it's basically our presidents, current and past, have just sent our troops into harm's way with no declaration of war, which means that we don't have any goal. So there's no goal in mind. What Ron would want when he becomes president is for our Congress to be unified, declare war, have an objective, go in there, win, and come back. Currently what we're doing is nation building, spending trillions of dollars overseas over the past decade. It's just not working for us. It's bankrupting our nation. It's costing us a lot of our sons and daughters overseas, and it's not a good thing. So more uniform and declared war is what Ron Paul would expect from his Congress.
All right, well, that's what we were looking for. Thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything else you wanted to say to Pahrump?
Cool. Turn out and caucus tomorrow.
We sure will. 9 a.m. at Rosemary Clark. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
So there you have it, folks.
There we go.
That's it.
That was nice of them. They're running late.
They are, yes.
Because they had planned on being here at noon, and Pahrump had planned on having everybody here at 1 for some reason. So it was very gracious of him to go back up on stage and give the people who came in at 1 o'clock just a few more of his words.
Yeah, a few more choice words for the people of Pahrump to really sort of drive home his campaign choices. And we sincerely appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. And I think that's pretty much, are we done? We're pretty much done?
That's pretty much it for today. It seems like there are a few people, visiting and talking about everything, but it looks like that is the event for today. So what's important now? The caucus, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. at Rosemary Clark Middle School.
That's right.
Make sure you're there, because that's the only way you can make a difference. And again, I'm Rhonda Van Winkle.
And I'm Rick Vale.
And for our exclusive live coverage of Congressman Dr. Ron Paul, we thank you for joining us.
And we'll see you here again tonight on News 46.
Thank you very much. Thank you.